Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our episode 2. I am your host, Zoie Chambers, and VP of CMS.
And hi, my name is Stella, co-host and member of Carmichael Studios.
For this episode, we will be discussing the TV series on Netflix called 3%. It is a Brazilian TV series.
So to give a brief synopsis, the backdrop of 3% is about a society in the distant future around 2030 where most people live in a poverty-stricken area called the inland. There's also an elite group that's chosen to live in the paradise called the offshore, and each year every 20-year-old gets the chance to make it to the island of paradise through a series of tests called the process. But only 3% of the 20-year-olds that enter each year succeed and qualify to leave the inland. In the series, we follow the journey of the 105th process, I believe, and those characters. For each of the seasons, there are 4 seasons in total, and in the first season, we see the characters coming from the inland and participating in the process. And then it's followed by the aftermath of that first process. And so that's basically a brief
synopsis. There's a lot of more details that happens in between what we just told you. It's a lot of complexity to this story, which is what kind of drew me in. Especially after the first episode, I was kind of immediately drawn in, like, wow, there's so much complexity to this show. There's so many different layers to the people who are coming from the inland, to the people who live in the offshore, how the people on offshore view the inland people, how the people on the inland view the offshore people. A lot of people look up to the offshore and it's like, oh, this amazing place, it's paradise, it's perfect, and this, that, the other. And then come to find out when we get to the episodes where we're actually in the offshore and we see people who live their life in offshore, they look down on the people in the inland. Like,
yeah, they definitely see themselves as more elite.
Yeah.
Since it's like, you know, they were given a fair process. I say that with quotation marks.
Right, yeah.
And they made
fair.
They made it through. Wow, there are people who stay in the inland and they don't make it. And
and they don't ever get a chance again. Yeah. You only get one chance. Like, one chance. When you're 20, because you're only 20 once. When you turn 20, that year of, you get that one chance to enter in. And if you don't pass the process, you will never, ever be able to get the chance ever again to see a life outside the inland. You would return to the inland and keep living your life there. Yeah. And it's very depressing, impoverished type life that they live in. So it creates this high motivational environment, a high competition environment for that people are just like, I don't want to live this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to live in paradise and everything. Not even knowing, and that's the ironic thing. None of the inlanders have ever seen offshore. They just heard about it. They just talk about, well, some people say it's this, some people say it's that, but it's all rumors.
And it's also
they're fighting for something that they don't really even know about. What if it's all lies? You know what I'm saying?
It's even like people from the offshore, there wouldn't be a person who's from the offshore who would voluntarily go back to the inland.
Oh, yeah. So, no one would ever voluntarily do it. Once you're in the offshore, you're set. And mind you, most of what they say about offshore is true, but it's just like the what if factor. Me being a person who's never seen it, it's just like a lot of people can say something about this, but you never know once you get there. And once you're in the offshore, you don't ever return.
Right.
It's like you either stay in the inland forever or you either go to the offshore and live there for the rest of your days. It's never in between. It's never, oh, I'm going to go visit my family that I left behind in the inland. No, once you leave, you're gone.
Yeah, and it's not like, oh, I made it through the process. I can bring my childhood son with me. No.
I can bring my neighbors. I can bring my mother, my son, my kids, and my family. Like, no, you leave them behind. And you're done.
It's that's really brutal.
Exactly. And I feel like that's the only certainty that some of these families have when they're 20-year-olds or their friends who are leaving for the process, if they notice that they don't return back or they never return, that's kind of like their insurance. Well, okay, they probably made it through. They're living a different life. Good for them. But if you pass, you return, and it's a sad trip back.
Yeah.
A sad, long trip. They will have to walk for like literally 48 miles.
Yeah.
45 to 48 miles.
That's
they have to walk up this giant mountain
and then
to this place.
Yeah, and then when they fail, they come right back down.
They have to come right back down the mountain.
So crazy.
It is very insane. But yeah, it's to make sure, the process is to ensure the elite only are allowed to be on offshore. Only the elite, only the smartest, only the strongest, only the quick thinkers, only this group of people. You know what I'm saying? They have a very set standard, and
they're very selective.
Very, very selective. People, because like when you first go in, it's like what? You go in, you get registered.
Mm-hmm. Change your clothes.
You got to change your clothes.
Get interviewed.
Yeah, the interview process. That's brutal. Where a lot of people get eliminated at.
Yep.
You got to go through the interview. You pass the interview, then the tests begin.
Yeah.
The real tests begin. And the tests are like brain puzzle type tests. We're talking like...
Yeah.
Some of these things could be like something that Einstein does for fun.
Yeah.
Some of the tests that's in there, it's like, I would have failed that.
It's very trivial. Like, yeah, no. I feel like if I was put in that position, I maybe would have made it through the interview, but anything after, no.
Like, you really
have to have a strong will to survive. And that's, like, one of the, like, first impressions that I got, not only from the first season, but, like, all the seasons overall. It's just a game of survival.
Literally.
Like, these people are, like, really trying to survive out here.
And it's just, like, it amazes me, too, because it's just, like, oh, my gosh, all of these people are passing. And it's, like, dang, some of it is not even, like, you have to be smart enough. Mm-hmm. Some of it is a matter of luck too.
Yeah.
Because some of the
tests...
There's
a lot of people, like a few people who got really lucky.
Very lucky, like just barely passed. Because some of the tests in this show, it's like, it's not only individual tests that you have to pass individually.
But there's group tests too. It's
group tests. It depends, like, if you have someone in your group that may be a weakness, well, you're kind of screwed. Because if one person doesn't succeed, then the whole group fails.
That's
the whole group will be eliminated. So that's like the part where we're like, fair with quotation marks, you know, it's not really fully fair because some parts it's just like, oh, I can't help that this group member isn't good at this skill and I'm good at this skill. But the whole point of it is just like to how well can you work with others.
Right.
And that's like, this is the complexity part that I was also talking about because a lot of these tests has some deeper meaning to them.
Yes.
It's not only, can you solve this cube or can you
put these cubes together?
Can you put these cubes together and make one big cube? Or can you go through this tunnel where we're going to intoxicate you with this gas that makes you recompensate trauma, like remember trauma and your dark past, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like the whole point of behind these tests is to see how well do you work with others? How well can you overcome your fears and traumas? Because they want offshore strives for perfecticism. So, like, you can't have any past fears or traumas that you're trying to get over. They don't want that.
They don't want weak-minded people.
They don't want weak-minded people.
Yeah.
They don't want people who are beggars. That's a great point that one of the characters, Joanna, brought up. Because it's just like, she was in the interview.
Yeah, and the interviewer almost eliminated her.
The interviewer almost eliminated her because she was just so nonchalant. Like, she was just so nonchalant while everybody else was like, I believe I can pass this process. I'm the best one. I need
a chance.
I need this. Give me a chance. Everyone's beggars. And it was like, but the interviewer was almost going to eliminate her because it just seemed like you just don't care. Like, you just don't care if you pass or fail. And she was just like, I doubt that the offshore is interested in beggars anyway. And I was like, you know what? That's a good point. Yeah. That's smart. Because you want it bad enough. Sure, you're going bad for it. But at the same time, this is the
You don't want to seem weak.
Exactly. This is the place of elite. Elitists don't beg for stuff.
Yeah.
Right? If you got to put yourself to be an elite mindset to live in an offshore, you're not going to be sitting in front of an interviewer begging.
Yeah.
You got to act like you got some specialty to you, too. You know, you got to appeal to them, of course, but you got to act like you know, like you the stuff, too. Like,
yeah, you have, like, more to offer.
Exactly. Like, you have something to really offer. Not just, please, give me this chance. And
I want a better life. No.
Like, I want a better, like, no.
even though this is like a Brazilian TV series, this series really reminded me of Squid Game.
Yes.
That's what I thought when they were starting the test. I was like,
yes.
I hope nobody dies.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing. I mean, even though people do die.
Yeah.
But it's not at the extent of Squid Games.
It's not like the
Squid Games.
It's not like the
you're
process
eliminated.
leader.
Exactly. Squid Games, you're eliminated by death.
Yeah.
This, you just have to go by to inland. And in this case, some people get so depressed they end up committing suicide.
Yeah, that is
But it's
true.
it's death that they bring upon themselves versus something that the process itself
It's not
brings
like the
upon.
process leader is going out of his way to
kill
the
these people.
20-year-olds
no.
that are participating.
And you know why? This is going to branch off a little bit. But you know why? The instructions to overcome the depression of failing the process. Because you notice how every time someone fails...
I peeped that too.
Yeah.
It's to reproduce.
Yes. And that's so they can keep the process going. They say...
It's a cycle.
Exactly. It's a cycle. They say, here's instructions to overcome your depression or your... whatever it is that you're feeling, your frustration after you failed the process.
Mm-hmm.
We encourage people to go back to the inland and have kids. Having kids can bring joy. They try to hide it, saying it can bring joy to your life and you can overcome this. And you won't have to worry about it anymore because now you have kids.
And then they mentioned that when they have kids, that their kids can participate in the process as well to potentially be in offshore too. They do mention it in the...
I didn't even catch that. They did.
No, they did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
kind
amazing.
of what there's a character named Raphael. He has like a rough childhood because his mother failed the process, and she's so struck that she failed that she just starts having kids and kids. He has 6 siblings and they all kept failing.
They all kept failing. She just kept having kids over and over, like all the kids she had, and it's just like, why would you suggest that to people who are poverty? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That doesn't logically make sense.
It does not. No.
Yeah, logically, that doesn't make sense. These are people who are living in a impoverished state, not only like in a physical and mentally, you know. That's not the smart thing to do. When you don't have money or a lot of resources to take care of a kid, it's not smart to have a kid. And that always upsets me because it's like, don't have kids and you can't take care of them.
Yes.
But that's why they try to say it. Just keep having kids so we can keep having people come to the process, and if your kid passed, you can come to the offshore with them. But you can't.
Yeah, no. That's not the way it works.
Because once they're gone. They never return. You don't ever see them again.
Right.
You're having kids who can potentially pass the process who you'll never see again.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's just like, are you serious?
Yeah, there's even instances where characters have, like, kids that they leave behind, like, small children.
Yes.
And, like, they leave their mother behind
Yep.
for a chance to live in paradise. It's very scary.
But at the same time, it's just like, you gotta realize these people, they have no running water, barely any electricity. I think they don't have electricity, period.
Yeah, there was a radiation leakage.
Yeah.
And so it led to, like, why the inland is so poverty
and that
stricken.
episode was even crazier because, like, it makes you think, how did the inland really... Of course, we have our theories, you know, running out of food, running out of resources, the inland, you know, but how did the inland actually become the inland? And when you get to that episode...
There's spoilers.
Spoiler alert. I always forget to mention that at the beginning of every episode.
I was thinking of doing it in the beginning, but then I was like...
I feel so bad. But of course, spoiler alert. But when you get into the episodes to find out why inland is inland, and realize that they made it that way, they bombed it, and they purposely leaked the radiation to damage all those electricity, water, to damage all those resources to make people want to come to the offshore or to make people compete for the offshore.
Yep.
And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think it was even crazier when what happened to the inland happens to the offshore, and then they're reunited.
Exactly.
That's also interesting.
And it's just like, you guys have no choice now.
Yeah.
Offshore is done.
Yeah. And then the one
can't go back there.
And then the one other safe place, which was called the Shell, it gets demolished.
Yeah. And the Shell, once again, spoiler alert, is what the main protagonist, Michelle. Yeah. Get that, Michelle. Yeah. The Shell. Michelle and Fernando, her love interest.
They created. They're the founders.
They're the founders of the Shell, which is an alternative to the process, an alternative to living in the inland, but also an alternative to going in the process and competing to go into the offshore.
Right.
It's for people who necessarily don't want the life in the inland anymore, but they don't want to be competing and battling like cutthroat competition to get into some fantasy offshore land. You know, it's like a realistic place, kind of designed for like how the world is now. Almost, like you work your share, everybody works their share, everybody puts in and contributes to live off crops and water and this and the other so that people can survive. But and then it's just like the people from the offshore, they got mad and they got envious and they wanted to disrupt the shell, and they destroyed the shell, and it forces people to go back. Oh, well, the process is the only other option for me now. It's either that or stay in the inland forever.
And then the shell residents, the main characters, go to the offshore because they're trying to negotiate something with the offshore, and they actually, right when the shell is destroyed and they realize that their home has been invaded by the offshore, and it's like, well, we're in the offshore now, let's invade their home. Then they destroy the offshore.
It's a bunch of what you do to me, I'm gonna do to you.
Yes.
Like literally the whole series itself is like people are doing to other people what that has been done for them. Between the lies and the cause, that's a whole nother layer to this story, y'all.
Yes.
The cause is a group of people who are against everything.
Yeah, they really are against the process.
They hate the people who live in offshore. They hate the people who run the process. Their sole goal, like their sole objective, is to destroy everything related to the offshore, everything related to the process. They don't want.
Yeah.
They feel like it's I forgot the exact
corrupt.
Process. It's very corrupt. They feel like it's very corrupt and it's destroying a lot of people's lives, and
it's basically like the cult group of the series.
Yeah, basically the cult group. It's just like,
oh, actually, never mind, because I feel like
they're more extremists.
The church is
the church is the cult.
Is the cult.
The church is the cult. The church is the cult.
Because it's basically people who have failed the process who come back to the inland and they join the quote-unquote church. But it's really them getting propaganda for like pro-process, pro-offshore.
Yes.
You know.
Literally, these group of people are coming together and they're like praising the founding couple. Oh my gosh, which really wasn't even the founding couple.
It was a trio.
It was a trio. Spoiler alert. But that's a whole nother layer to the story. Because the couple, because there was a trio. And they were all actually in a polyamorous relationship. This couple, they were all with each other.
Yes.
And they all came together to form the offshore and this paradise. But then the couple, something came up and they were like, we need to do something about this inland. We need to bomb it. We need to ruin people's lives.
Yeah.
And this, that, the other.
And then, usually they vote unanimously, but one of the founders disagreed with the other two, so they turned on her. Not to say too much.
Yeah,
but they turned on her.
They turned on her, and then she was out the picture.
Yep.
We're not going to go too much in details, but you can probably use your context.
Probably imagine.
To what happened to that poor girl. But it used to be the founding trio. But anyways, back to this church, this cult church. They're not even really a church. But anyways, they're just a group of people who are coming together to praise the founding couple, praise them for giving them a chance to get off the inland. Even though these are people who failed the process, it will literally...
They're praising so highly.
They're never going to see these people. They're never going to see the founding couple. They're never going to see these people or even go near the process building anymore.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
why? Why the delusions?
And it's like, so even one of the episodes, the pastor, who is Fernando's father, by the way, a little insight into him, why he's so interested in the process, because he grew up around his father, who is the pastor to this cult or the church, whatever. Always like, oh, you're going to pass the process is this, the process is good, it's this, that, the other.
Basically given an ideology that he had no control, or he had no way of combating the ideology.
Yeah.
But basically, Fernando, he goes into the process thinking it's good, and even though he's disabled, he has a wheelchair, he still believes that he can pass the process.
Right.
But one thing that he, as well as all the other process participants, realize is that the process, though it's made out to seem fair and just and, you know...
It's the only way.
It's the only
right way.
It's the only right way of doing things. They all realize that it's rigged and corrupt. it's like it's something that they just know it's bad by the end of it.
And like literally they put this perception in them, you know what I'm saying? Like they purposely, you know, put this ideology in their head. This is how they get the motivation, not only for them to keep having children, even though they really shouldn't keep having kids, but to like also they put this in their head to like keep having the kids so you can get a chance, and like this is a beautiful, like everybody want it. And of course, because it works every time. Because of course, if I'm living in a place where I have no food, hardly any food, barely any water, no electricity, of course, if I'm living in a state, I'm willing to do anything to get out of there. Of course, you're gonna do that to people like that. Of course, that always usually works. You know, because rarely people are going to be happy and satisfied with the life they're living there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Some people will and be like, oh, I don't care. This is it for me. And some people can come to terms with it.
There's a lot of grudges that are held in general.
But even then, even those people still imagine, oh, what if? You know what I'm saying? It's always a what if. What if I was able to just do this one thing right? What if I was to just never fail this test? Where would I be? How would my life be in the offshore? And that's just the driving force, the driving motivation to why all these people from the inland are just like, you know what? We got to do this at all possible. People cheat on these tests, y'all.
Yes, they cheat. Let's say you fail a test, for instance, but you have a younger brother who's about to turn 20. You just steal his registry.
Raphael.
And you get a second chance to get into the process again.
Raphael.
Yep.
Literally Raphael. That's literally.
But there's also the case of Joanna, where she made a mistake, and she was being hunted down, so she got her registry changed. I mean, she wasn't registered previously, but then once she got into her process, it was like she got a second chance in a way, even though she was trying to disappear.
Yep. She, like, literally, and it was someone else's, the registration, the lady who registered her with someone who died. I guess they died before they were able to make it to the process. Yeah. It was someone who died before they were able to make it to the process. So their registration was still, because that part confused me only because it's like, this part is, because she put out the liver.
Yeah.
And it's like,
she said that
it only remains active.
It needs to be in living cells.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise,
so the
it will
living cells
deactivate.
But if she's dead, how's the liver still alive? Unless I'm just not smart enough and I don't realize.
I mean, she had it in like a fridge or something
to preserve it. Maybe I'm just a dumb person.
Hey, don't say that.
Maybe I'm just dumb and I don't understand how cells can stay alive. I don't know. Whatever.
But no, the technology that they used was kind of legit. But would Americans agree to putting an implant that has their whole identity behind their ear?
Yeah. And you let us know too. After listening to this podcast, let us know your thoughts and comments under the YouTube page or under our Instagram. Tag us, let us know, give us a reply, let us know how you feel about it, or go watch it for yourself and come back and give us your thoughts and synopsis of it as well. We definitely encourage some engagement on this because this is a really good show that addresses a lot of modern day problems, even though it's set in the far future. It addresses a lot of problems that we're going through now or either about to go through.
Yeah, for sure.
With technology, with elitists, with competition for resources, competition for space.
Yes.
With, doing anything you can to succeed. We see that a lot and stuff like that with our society nowadays. And it's just like, even though this is not directly what we go through, we don't live in the inland or anything like that. We can, a lot of things that I feel like a lot of people today can relate to, even though it's not the exact same situation. It's the principle that's behind a lot of the stuff that goes on within these episodes or within the seasons of the show that it's just like, it really makes you think.
It really does.
Like, it really, really makes you think, like, wow. Because this is exactly what could happen.
Exactly.
This is exactly what could happen. As corrupt as people are, this is exactly where we could end up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just like, how do we prevent this? How do we prevent from getting to being like this? What can we learn from this? And like, what can we take away from these episodes, from these seasons to realize how to, like, how do we avoid, like, what not to do, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely, in general, in all the seasons, I sensed like a power struggle between, like, a battle of the classes between the elite and the
underclass,
lesser class,
less class, whatever you
call it. But
The lower class.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said
whatever.
underclass.
Yeah. But that made me think of like this concept. I think it was like a Karl Marx concept called the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie or something like that. It's basically where the rich and powerful control everything, or the bourgeoisie control everything, and the proletarians work.
Yeah.
It's not exactly like what's happening in the 3%, but it's like there's an elite power that's has all the power.
Exactly. Let's compare 3% to our modern day society. Let's just go ahead and do that. Let me just go ahead and prepare. Even though we're not living in we're not living in a complete dystopian society. Yeah. I mean, we are in a dystopian society, but not to the extent that is in this show, right?
That's true.
But what is something that we all compete over? Money, jobs, resources, security, job security, resources, and stuff like that. College.
Yeah.
It's something that I could look at as being the process.
There's a lot of survival and competition involved in college.
I look at the process being a replica of college. If we were to supply some of the same principles and some of the same structures of 3% to modern day current society.
Or maybe you could even go so broad as to say like the whole educational system.
The whole educational system, yes. Because you're taught their structure that this is the way you can get jobs, this is the way you can make a living, this is the way, the same way that they're taught in the inland, the process is the way you can make it to a better life. This is the way that you can get somewhere better off than where you are now. This is the way that you can live happily ever after, right?
Yeah,
That's the whole thing that everybody wants. Everybody wants the happily ever after.
Yeah.
So if we compare the 3% to us, what's something that we commonly taught? Go to college, get a degree, get a stable job, make money, have kids, have a family, have them go to school, have them go to school, have them graduate, have them get degrees, have them get... Let the cycle repeat and work until you die.
It's a very dramatic way of saying it, but yes, there's a point.
The only difference is, and for that is, for us,
you can choose not to.
Exactly, you can choose not to. It's like, this is the way society is structured. It's kind of like you don't even have much of a choice to. It can kind of be the system, but it's rare, and it's very hard to.
Yes, that's true.
Exactly, especially if you want to do certain professions. Like if I'm a doctor, if I want to become a doctor or an engineer or something like that, it's like you kind of don't have a choice.
Yeah, but to go to school.
But like not everyone's built for school.
That's
true. Same way not everybody was really built for the process.
True. It's like,
but does that make it fair?
No. It's even though they come from the same location and they're all participating in it collectively, that doesn't necessarily mean that one person has the edge over another. Like you could say like the example for Marco. He comes from a legacy family where everybody
an Alvarez, right?
Alvarez, that's his last name, yeah. And it's basically where everybody in his family is known to pass the process and like make
literally
it to the offshore.
Every single generation from start the family, literally generation after generation,
they make it.
Of the family has passed, and that's what they refer to as an Alvarez, because you're almost granted.
Yeah.
Not almost granted.
Not like guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed. You still have to go through the process, but it's just like you kind of already have your luck set out for you in a way.
Yeah, and it's like he had all the makings of a leader and all the setup.
Because it's genetic.
Yeah.
They like to think of it as a genetic thing. Like it's just in you now because you came from this person who passed, so it's in you.
But then he goes through his process and he actually fails.
Yeah.
Which is like something that's never happened before.
That's exactly... Especially to Alvarez, because you're supposed to keep it going. But you know what? He did that to himself. He could have passed.
He really did.
I honestly feel like Marco could have kept his legacy going if he hadn't become so arrogant and
absorbed by who he was.
Exactly.
There was a lot of people where I was like, they could have passed. If they put their feelings aside, they could have passed. If they pushed the button.
Joanna almost didn't make it. She cheated too. And that's why Raphael and her were close in the beginning.
They bonded because they both got a second chance to get into the process. They both got
a second chance, but they both like kind of cheated in a way to get in.
Yeah.
The process leader, Ezekiel, who is running the things.
Yeah.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't. No.
He doesn't care that you're
Nobody
cheating.
really cares.
He sees it because they're monitoring it.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't know that they're being monitored, but every part of the process is being monitored by the elitist group or Ezekiel, who's in charge of coming up with the trials and the tests. He has to coordinate the tests and all that stuff.
It's basically like the manager of the process.
Basically. And then there's the council, who's like the elders of the whole
offshore.
elitist,
Yep.
the elders of the offshore, the people who go to, they basically oversee everything as well. Yeah. They're like the boss. They're like the council is basically the people who Ezekiel will report to, and the militia will report to, because offshore has their own militia now to go in and fight the cause of. Because the cause is against them, but the offshore has the militia to fight them and da 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 da. It's like when I tell you guys,
there's a lot of violence.
There's a lot of violence. And there's so many layers to this story, like literally so many different layers.
Definitely.
And the thing that's so beautiful about this series is how it's all connected. Between the cause to the offshore.
Yeah, the intersectionality.
To the founding couple or the founding throuple.
Yeah. The intersectionality of the series is very well put together and meticulous. Very, very well put together.
Whoever was the screenwriter, script writers, I know it's probably, I feel like it was more than one. Mm-hmm. But if it was one person, I'm hella impressed.
Yes.
Very, very impressed, because like they really, this is a well thought out, written out story. Like, and the storylines to each character is just amazing. It's so amazing. It adds dimension to it.
Yes.
There's so much dimension.
With every passing season, I leave wanting more. And even when I was like, I know after this 4th season, there's not going to be another one, unfortunately.
The 5th one, though. It was 5, though, right?
No, there's only 4.
I could have sworn there was 5.
No. There's only 4 seasons.
Oh, my goodness.
But I was like, oh, my gosh. Like, if there was a 5th season,
yeah, it would have been over.
That
would have been amazing. That would have been perfect. Just check and make sure, because I could have sworn it was 5. But at least it had a somewhat happy ending. It did have a happy ending at the end. I will say
hopeful.
That. But they had to go through so much.
There's a lot leading up to it.
They had to go through so much to get to the happy ending, though. It's like, is it even a happy ending at that point? Because everybody did about suffer and been through every trauma there was
under the sun. Yeah,
literally. Oh my goodness.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But
I have a few comments. You can take them as you will. I think that Fernando deserved more.
Yes, I agree.
And then there's a character named Andre. He's Michelle's brother, who she thinks is dead, but is actually alive. But is actually the villain. But basically, he could have rotted in the box because he was arrested in the offshore. And I'm like, he should have rotted there. That's just my opinion.
He caused so much mess to go down. Like, oh my God, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, unhinged. And then I also wrote that nobody does the process better than Ezekiel.
Nobody.
Except for maybe Michelle. Because there is there is a point where she's the only founder of the shell, and they go through a drought. And then they have to do what she calls a selection.
Caused by the offshore, by the way.
Yes, caused by the offshore. Manipulation.
They literally, like, when I tell y'all, like, they literally got envious of the shell.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why are you envious of something that you're more of? Y'all don't even need to do. Like, the people on the offshore don't have to work, y'all. This is why I said this show compares a lot to modern day elitists and classism. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people who are at the top don't do that much work. Like, they live an actual luxury style to where they do whatever the heck they want to do. And they just live off of other people and they make money.
They close their gates to everybody else. And the potential to find yourself in a better situation than being less than, they just don't like that idea of like letting other people into their elite circle. Like, and the show wasn't even elite.
That's what I'm saying. The show didn't have elitist ideas. I don't know why it bugged them so much that the shell was the shell. It's like an in between. It's like a middle ground.
Yeah.
The shell served as a middle ground.
Neutral.
It was like what I thought of as the middle class, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought of it too.
The shell kind of represented the middle class. You have the inland.
Works.
Right. You have the inland, that's the lower class, and then you have the shell, that's middle class. You still have to work to get your share. But life isn't so bad as it was when you were in the inland.
Right.
And then you have the offshore, which is just the top 1%, the leader, 3%.
Yeah.
But for modern day society, if you look at the United States or whatever, it would be the
it would
1%.
be the 1%.
But for this show, it's the 3%, right?
Right.
It's the people you have to compete and you have to just prove that you're the best of the best to be the elite, and then you literally do nothing. But they have yoga classes, they have art classes, they have
an abundance of food,
abundance of alcohol. People just party all night and they just do whatever they want. And it's just like,
are they not traumatized by their experiences?
And that's the thing,
I wondered about that, because it's like that was kind of explored in the second season a bit, when a few of the characters make it onto the offshore, but some of them don't. And it's like, even though they've made it and their life should be good and it should be great, but they're still dealing with the trauma that they had to go through from the process.
Exactly, not only from the process, but your inland life, even though you're never going to have to go back to the inland, it's still with you. It's still who you are. Everybody that's in the process, or everybody that's made it to offshore, came from the inland.
Absolutely.
And that's another thing that pissed me off about the series, because it's like, you act like not just a few years ago you was in the same position. You act like you didn't have to go through the process.
Yeah,
the
and
way
then you have the like Andre, for instance, has the audacity to look down on these inland folks. I was like, bro, you grew up here.
Exactly.
You're literally from here.
Exactly. That's what makes me so mad, because it's just
so
like
upsetting.
y'all are the same people, and y'all are the same. Just because they're wearing scraps and cloths and you're wearing leather and this, that, the other, doesn't keep you right.
You're not better. And that kind of, if we apply it into like daily life or life in the U.S., for instance, it's kind of like somebody coming from nothing and then becoming famous, and then
just
looking
their
down,
whole entire personality.
looking down on others.
They just change. They just act like they wasn't eating school lunch before as well. Like they act like they didn't have to pay to get into clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't need to get into club like that.
You're not all that.
Right,
you're not better because
you're not better.
You're not better because you have more money in your account. That shouldn't. Your privileges should not define you. You know.
No matter how much money I ever make in life,
you gotta stay humble.
I'm always gonna stay humble, and I'm never gonna switch up and act like brand new. Like, oh, I don't know you anymore.
I feel like if anything, if I were to become more prosperous than I currently am and more wealthy, I would actually act like I'm poor so that people treat me differently.
I would fool people. I'm actually broke, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm living paycheck to paycheck.
Go into a store and somebody tell me, I don't think you could shop here. I'll be like, wow, I really made it, huh?
Yeah.
Imagine.
Like, what are you doing here? You look out of place. You look a little lost.
Are you sure you can afford that?
Are you sure you can afford this? Ma'am, Walmart is down the street.
Oh my God.
That's what I want. I want to fool people.
What I want.
I want to walk into the Gucci store, or walk into Balenciaga, or walk into
wearing a $2 t-shirt.
Still wearing my Shein clothes I'm wearing now.
Yeah.
I want to walk into those stores wearing my Shein outfits, and be like, ma'am, are you lost? And be like, actually, I have everything in this store right now. Give me all the purses you have right now. And they're like, ma'am, I don't think you can. Here's my card. And
now what?
Yeah, and you can't refuse
now
it.
What?
Now what? That's how I want to live. I want to fool people. I kind of want to live that life where it's just like, you don't even know.
You want to know by looking at her.
Does she have money, or does she broke? Because she walking around here like she broke. She look like she broke. But she really got money.
Yeah.
She really got money.
Yeah.
I like fooling people.
It's fun.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. You can't go off flaunting your wealth. I mean, every now and then treat yourself. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Of course, I own a Gucci or a Louis.
Mm-hmm.
But middle class people own that too.
Yeah.
You got to like kind of subtly blend in. I'll deal with the taxes and the IRS later. You know? I'll deal with that separately, but nobody knows about that except for them, right? Or except for the people who do your taxes.
Right.
So it's just like, how do you know? You can't.
You wouldn't know by
You gotta
looking
blend
at the person.
in.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
And then I also wrote, to go back to my comments, Michelle was the best leader because she was trained by the best leaders. Because she was trained by one of the 3 leaders of the cause who recruited her, but she was also trained by Ezekiel,
who used to be part of the cause.
That was crazy.
Isn't that something? That is a prime example. That's a prime
confusing
example of showing you how people act brand new, They come from a certain place. They used to be part of this, and then they switch up and they act brand new. Now, if you're switching for the better, if he went to offshore and decided, oh, I want to do something to help the people of the inland instead of just having this elitist attitude, then that's fine. You can act brand new in that sense. But if you're acting brand new only just to shun people who you used to be or people who you used to replicate,
Yeah, that guy was tough. It was so confusing. I was like, is he for the cause? Is he for the offshore? Is he selfish? Is he trying to help?
Like, that shook me.
That was one of
Dr. Ezekiel, the freaking process leader himself, used to be part of the cause of.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Or the cause.
I was like, they didn't think to look that up. Like, with all their technology, like...
He's smart as hell, though.
He fooled them. Like, even, like, the one of the members of the council, while he was taking his process, she was there and, like, talking to him. And I was like, oh, my God, they have their eyes on Ezekiel. Okay, pop off.
Exactly.
But that was crazy.
And it's just, like, it just goes to show you, bro. It's like the very people who are the elitist, smart people came from the cause.
Yeah.
All these tests he's doing to run people and drive people crazy to get into the offshore, he used to be part of the cause. And the cause was against everything process related, everything offshore.
And then he became everything that the process was against.
And then he became exactly what the group he was part of was against.
Yeah.
It's seriously ironic, y'all.
Really. Another thing that I wrote was that there's these two characters named Gloria and Xavier. They're like kind of like in the later seasons. Yeah. But one thing that I wrote was that their processes were rushed. I don't know, maybe it was just like in the way I was comparing 3% to Squid Game and you saw the whole thing play out. I don't know. I guess it was like I was kind of expecting to see all the processes laid out. It's like maybe because it's like the thing about the process was like it's like entertaining even though it's very very wrong and kind of twisted. I don't know. I was like I didn't see Gloria's process. We barely saw Xavier's process, but I mean, they served their purpose, I guess.
But I think it's because of the narration, like the sequence of events. By the time we made it to them, they already failed. I think they were already past 20. They already failed. Yeah, and that's why we didn't see much of it, right? No, because Gloria was younger. Gloria was a year younger than Fernando, right?
Yeah, she was.
So
she failed because Fernando was dying.
Yeah.
Oh, spoiler alert! Sorry.
Oh yeah, another spoiler alert because they were childhood friends.
Yeah.
She wants to be there for him.
And then Xavier wasn't going to go to.
That was her final test.
Yeah.
That's another thing. She almost made it to the offshore.
Yeah.
But because she received news that Fernando was dying, she left the process and knowing that she could never go back. That was literally her only. The test itself was, your friend's dying. Are you going to go aid him or are you going to come live with the elite people?
That's a crazy test.
That was her last test. And it's just like, it's not, that's what I mean. Like, the tests aren't only physical. It's a lot of it, to be honest,
it's psychological. Absolutely.
It's very psychological. What kind of mind state are you? How bad do you really want to be part of it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you have to show your full allegiance. Yeah.
They dig real deep, and they dig deep. Like, I'm talking about personal, dark stuff that you just don't want people knowing about, or you just want to keep to yourself.
Like, potentially killing people just to show that you're elite and that you're better than these people and that you can make it on the offshore. Like, it's crazy stuff.
Very crazy.
Another thing that I wrote was actually that Gloria shouldn't have left her process. Because it's like, once she leaves her process, she's like plagued with the fact that she could have been an elite. And then she spends the rest of the series kind of like trying to compensate for that to possibly re-enter into and potentially become an elite person. So I'm like,
and she destroys a lot of things in between those periods of her getting a second chance to do the process, which usually you don't get a second chance. But when Marco's mother comes into the picture, Marcella,
she's a backstabber.
Marcella, oh my God, like,
that lady was twisted.
She was really twisted, but it's just like, when you look at her past, when we go into Marcella's past, we look at her father.
It almost makes you feel sorry for her.
It's just like she was conditioned this way. Her father was a hard, let me not say that word, but her father was he's a butthole.
Yeah, he's a butthole.
To her. And she replicated that same behaviors to her son. And
she replicates it to everybody else. It seems, because she ends up being a butthole too.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And then when she realized, the only reason why Gloria got, another spoiler, the only reason why Gloria got another chance because she was pregnant with her son's baby. She didn't want her baby growing up in the shell. She didn't want her baby growing up in the inland or whatever. You're going to come to offshore. Even though kids aren't even allowed in offshore. It's just another thing.
Yeah.
Another spoiler alert.
Yeah.
People, what's it called? You get sterilized? Not sterilized.
Yeah, no, it's sterilized.
Oh, yeah. You get sterilized before you go to the offshore.
Yeah,
you don't get to have kids ever.
Have kids.
You don't get to have kids ever
to deal with, because that's their way of dealing with overpopulation.
And you know how the cause was found? The founding couple's kid, after they got rid of the trio.
Yeah.
They had a kid.
Yeah. And there was a time where
the kid was in the offshore.
Yeah,
there was a time where kids were in the offshore. You was able to be born in the offshore.
But then after the sterilizing method comes about, the council decides not really unanimously, because the founding couple's against it, but they decide that
it will only be fair.
It'll only be fair if kids participate in the process. So their daughter is forced to go to live in the inland.
They have to send her away.
And then when she turns 20, she goes through her process, but she
fails. The first test.
Yeah.
She passed the interview, but she literally fails the very first test, y'all.
So then she founds the cause. It's crazy.
The cause is literally founded by the daughter of the founding couple.
Yeah, it was insane.
Y'all, when I tell you the complexity of
it's like an onion. It's like an onion. It's got layers.
It has so many layers, but everything is connected to each other. And when you rip layer after layer, you get deeper into it. Oh my God, it just gets worse.
It gets worse before it gets better. I'll say that. It gets worse before it gets better.
Oh my God. When that episode was revealed to me, I'm like, oh my God, shut the front door.
I thought it was crazy.
Front door.
It was crazy to me that there was a founding trio. But then when I found out that they had a daughter, I was like, yo.
Because it's just like, how did the cause came about? It's the founding couple's daughter. Are you kidding me?
It's crazy. Like all the pieces come together. It's insane. The other thing that I wrote was that over time, Joanna becomes a greater leader than Michelle. Because there are times where I'm like, why is Michelle the leader right now? Like, there's so many.
She lies so much.
People.
She's a liar.
She's a liar.
She's a well-trained
psychological. She's trained by the best.
Pathological liar.
She was trained by the best. But it's like when you meet Joanna, she's selfish. And she only cares about herself and her survival, you know? But then as the seasons progress, you see that she actually has a warm heart and she cares about not just herself, but the good of, like, all people. And that really comes to a head during, like, the last season and the last few episodes of the series. Yeah. And it's really beautiful to watch her character development. One of the characters where I'm like, yeah, I was rooting for you the whole time, and it's like great that you're doing the thing.
The end was like a really nice part because like when offshore is blown up.
Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert.
Offshore gets destroyed, and the offshore basically becomes its own inland. Mm-hmm. But it's an inland where you can die.
Yeah.
See, the other inland, the original inland, that's one where you don't have much, but you can still somewhat survive. You can barely get by. But this one, when they blew up offshore, it's too much radiation in the air to where you will literally die.
Yeah.
You will eventually get cancer and you'll die you'll die from breathing in that air. And it's a fast death too. Mm-hmm. It's not like a slow one.
No.
That cancer gives you or something, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like, it's invading your body immediately.
You're dead.
Immediately upon breathing in that air. You're dead. So they made offshore to be even worse than the original inland, which is like ironic.
Yeah.
So, and then all these people coming from offshore, it's like, we can't go back. Offshore is done. There is no more offshore.
Yeah.
Well, where else can you go? You destroyed the shell. The shell's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So now everybody has to go to the inland.
Yeah.
Everybody from the shell, from the offshore, everybody lives in the inland. And everybody has to live with the consequences of their own greedy actions.
Right. That's true. That's true. It's definitely an interesting turn of events. You would have never guessed it from watching the first episode. I guess.
Because it always just seemed like offshore wins. It always
Yeah.
felt like that. Like, for the majority of the seasons, offshore
That's
always
true.
wins because offshore has all the resources. Offshore always has all the advanced technology. Offshore is advanced. They have their own militia.
Mhm.
Inland doesn't even have anything to defend themselves. The offshore they only have the cause up, but the cause is not even for the entire inland. The cause is its own separate thing. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
And then it's so many separate groups within the inland itself. They're not even
they're not even united.
They're not even united like the offshore is. So that automatically even gives them the upper hand too.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But
It's
what
so
happens when
crazy.
you put all of them in one? Catastrophe. But I won't ruin it too much. Even though we ruined a lot already. Which, like I said, anytime you listen to our podcast, just know it's going to be spoiler alerts. Just know.
Yeah. It's
Because
gonna
we're going to
happen.
get into
So
some things.
sorry.
We're always going to get into some things.
One thing that I wrote was that Eliza deserved more. Eliza, I guess for context, she's a character that's introduced in later seasons.
Yeah.
She's Raphael's love interest. And
A doctor.
yeah, she's a doctor. She goes through the process, passes, lives in the offshore, and her life's all good. And then she meets Raphael.
And then everything just goes out of control.
Everything just goes out of control for her life, I guess.
Because she was living a pretty normal, decent life. All she did was work as a doctor. She helped people when they got, rarely people get sick on offshore, but people weren't feeling so well, or people needed certain vaccinations or sterilizations. That's all she did.
Yeah.
Imagine just having to do that and just live in paradise for the rest of your life. Like, oh, I just have to give people shots every now and then, make sure people are registered, and I can do whatever I want.
Yeah. Nice life.
Yeah.
But it's like when she meets Raphael and she gets like sucked into his world, and it's like everything that she worked so hard for is kind of thrown away, and it's like really sad.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just list the few questions that I had.
Uh-huh.
What's Joanna's real name? Because she got
We will
re-registered.
never find
will
out.
never know.
It's a curiosity point because
It is
that's not her
curious.
real name. She
Yeah.
doesn't know her real name because she doesn't remember anything from her past really up until like
Last season.
yeah,
And-
which is a whole nother story amongst its
Yeah.
own.
And then lastly, I put that the 20-year-olds who participated in the process were treated like guinea pigs, and it was really sad.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're going through physical trauma, they're going through emotional trauma, psychological trauma. Even if they do pass, they have to deal with that for the rest of their lives. If they fail, they have to dwell on that for the rest of their lives.
They have to
and
dwell
it just
on it.
all sucks.
Yeah. It's why it has the counseling. Because offshore does have counseling service, y'all. It's not like it's just, oh, it's paradise and now live life happily ever after.
They have a mental institution.
They have a mental
really.
institution on the island. This is very true, y'all.
For people who have
'Cause they
trouble
know.
adjusting.
Yeah, for people who have it, because that's the whole point. They want them to adjust, they want them to get back right, and they want them to forget about their life and just live life as is. So they have a mental institution, but it's not really to help treat them, to help them deal with it. It's just to be like, okay, now she's back to satisfaction. Now go live your life now. Like, go keep the place happy, basically.
Yeah.
It's more...
It's an illusion.
That's the thing. The mental institution is more of a dismissive type gesture rather than actually actively giving them therapy.
That's true.
To actually tackle traumatic parts of what they went through in the inland and during the process. It's just more like, okay, get better or whatever. They give them a lot of medicine too. They give them medication.
Yeah.
Like, this should help you feel stabilized now. So, yeah.
A lot going on in the series.
It's so much. And that's how Ezekiel's wife died. Because Ezekiel, y'all, had a wife who ran the process with him. She was his right hand. But she got so depressed because of their son.
Yeah.
Their kid, that they had to send off to the inland. She got so depressed, she wanted to go be with him. Well, actually, that's not their kid.
No, that's her.
That's her previous kid that she left when she passed the process.
Yeah. She just couldn't get over
She just couldn't get over that she left her son.
And then for the first time in all offshore history, somebody kills themselves in offshore.
Yep.
And
it was her.
Yeah.
Ezekiel's wife, who ended up being the process leader.
Yeah.
Isn't that ironic? Isn't that crazy?
Somebody killing themselves in paradise.
Literally. Was so supposed to be such a perfect elitist world. We're the best. We don't need it. We don't need anybody. We don't need anything. Because we are who we are. And then someone committed suicide.
It's an illusion.
Exactly.
It's an illusion.
It's illusion. People there are delusional out their minds. But yeah. Well, we're coming to the end of our podcast. Any closing remarks that you have, Stella? Any final comments?
Watch the 3% on Netflix. All 4 seasons. Like and comment on our video. Let us know if there's anything that we could be doing better as a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And because we take all those criticisms in, and
Yes.
we'd love to improve on our craft. Watch 3% on Netflix. Thank you for continuing to support CMS Studios and CMS Podcasts.
Yes, thank you. And I'll say my final closing marks as well. Thank you once again for tuning into the episode. I heavily encourage to watch this show. Like, it's a really great show. But of course, this is an international film that was filmed in Brazil. They will be speaking Portuguese.
Yes.
Yeah, so it is in a different language. So I would definitely recommend having closed captions on when you do watch it so you can understand, unless you know the language, and you don't have to.
Yes.
Even better. But have the closed captions, English closed captions on when you do watch this episode. Let us know your thoughts. Watch it through, meditate on it, really think about it. I really want you guys to try to compare how 3% is structured compared to modern day society.
Yes, it's very interesting.
It's very interesting. There's so many different similarities in this show than you may realize, and that may be scary for people to even try to admit.
True.
How closely similar this show is to how modern day society is.
Absolutely.
Especially in the United States of America.
Yeah.
But anyways, yes, once again, thank you for supporting. I am your host, Zoie Chambers, and VP of Carmichael Studios.
And I'm Stella Mabiala, member and co-host of the podcast, member of Carmichael Studios.
And this is CMS Podcasting. Toodles!